We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Our guest is Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall. Taking your phone calls if you want to jump in, 737-7587. What's on your... You never know where these calls are going to go, but we're going to find out. All right, let's start things off with Mike. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Good morning,
Mike.
Sheriff.
Good morning, Mike.
I have a question for you, Sheriff. It's something that's raised my curiosity here. We've had a couple of cases in Davidson County where people under domestic abuse arrest were given restraining orders and set free. Now, the first one that I'm questioning about is the developer that Casey Moreland's attached to in some way or another, you know, where he was arrested, given a restraining order, and from what I was understanding by the law then, he was supposed to be held for 24 hours in a cooling off period.
12-hour cooling off period, isn't it? 12 hours.
Then the gentleman in Antioch apparently was given a restraining order and let go.
Right.
Figure that up as far as how's that go, because it seems like these old boys get these restraining orders and then go right back and attack the people that they're supposed to be protecting.
Right, good. Both of those are really good questions. So let me see, and some of this is about memory, Mike, so I want to make sure that the case on the Casey Moreland situation, he was arrested for violating or had a domestic arrest, and in that, the local rule, and I think the law itself requires there's a 12-hour cooling off period, so that person is to stay here, if you will, stay in the jail to be cooled off. In that case, based on the attorney and the judge talking about it, the judge released him from that cooling off period, and that became the big controversy. The judge does have the authority to do that. I think you would agree with me that that brought a lot of attention to that case. I can't prove this, but I doubt that's happened very much since because of judges' interference in those cases. But so yeah, that happened. Surely wasn't the right thing to do. I don't believe, and I think you're right. He went back out and was rearrested. The Antioch situation, a couple things to remember. The Sheriff's Office serves what are called orders of protection. That's basically a term that people use in kind of synonymous to restraining order. We go to Nick Beres, we order you, we serve you notice that you are to stay away from Daron Hall. Here are the circumstances, here's the reasons why, and you have a court date, you know, 2 weeks out or a month out to go plead your case in front of a judge as to why you should be able to be around me. So the restraining order term or the order of protection are kind of interchangeable in this situation. The man in Antioch was arrested for, and I don't remember all the story, but he was arrested, brought to jail. We served him the order of protection here. That happens all the time when they're arrested. We get it done at the same time. So he was put on notice and served notice that he is to no longer be around the individual. Why that happens is that if the car pulls up and it's within, you know, the distance that is not allowed, that's a crime now. That is a criminal charge. And so the victim, the petitioner, or the neighbors, the sons, the daughters can call the police, and immediately that person's arrested just for being there. Right. They don't have to commit a crime. That's a crime for being there.
Supposed to stay away.
Right. They're staying. So we served him notice to stay away. That made him just going back into the vicinity of the petitioner a crime, and so he could have been arrested. Obviously, that's not always going to work because, and you can't lock them in jail awaiting the court hearing on an order of protection. It's a civil matter. And so when he was released from jail for his criminal charges, he had an order of protection requiring him to stay away. He violated that, obviously, and did many more things. That's the risk that you always are involved with. If he had been physically charged with assaulting the woman, and I don't know the case real well, to be honest, other than our role, then obviously he can go to jail, he can post bond and get out on bond. That happens a lot too, and then go back out and be involved with the person. One of the things that I think is worth noting, it never really gets talked about around town, we serve all the orders of protection for the city. That has increased about 50% in the last few years. The volume of order of protections being taken out is blowing the roof off.
I was going to ask you, for real, I mean, that many orders of protection, just, what are we talking, hundreds a week?
Yes, it's thousands a year, and I forget what, I don't know, 3,400 maybe a year.
But you make a great point. Orders of protection work when there's maybe, usually out of a domestic, right? And it's oftentimes the male who maybe loses his cool, goes too far, scares the woman, and she gets the order of protection, okay? Now, usually when the heads cool off, that male realizes and the last thing he wants to do is go to jail, and he observes the order of protection. But the truth is, an order of protection, unless they're locked up, if there's some individual, male or female out there, that wants to get to that person and kill them or hurt them, order of protection is not going to do anything, meaning they're willing to do whatever. They're going to go get them. Order of protection is not some magical shield. If that person doesn't want to abide by the law, there's not a cop there watching them, making sure they don't show up at the house. People walk through orders of protection all the time, then end up going to jail, but gosh forbid they could end up hurting someone. I mean, those things are, you know, I mean, they're not perfect, that's for sure.
And I think the issue too, to keep in mind, that there's people who believe, and I think this is a fair statement, that it's a good thing that more people are feeling comfortable taking them out, because there's a lot of opportunities in Nashville that we used to not have. The domestic conversation is very large, and there's a Gene Crow Advocacy Center over here where you can go have an order of protection taken out if you feel, it's a very clean, good system. But the point is, I think historically that crime or that issue has been hidden behind the door of the house. With all the conversation in domestic in the last, as I say, since O.J. Simpson, but has really brought the conversation about domestic abuse out front. And I think for that purpose, the more people taking them out is a good thing, because it makes people feel comfortable. And there are those that are violated. I think the reality of it for the petitioner is, once I take out an order of protection, I need to go, and a lot of times, get help in a shelter or to be protected while all this is going on. The big stage of that is early on, but I think it's worth noting, we serve the front line of the whole thing. We do all of the order. We go out and put you on notice to stay away from.
So you'll go out there and go to the individual, say, look, I've got order of protection here, and the guy's like, what is this? Means, and you guys explain. Do your deputies say, okay, sir, this is a court order that's telling you you cannot go within.
And that's driven by the court, but I forget exactly.
Whatever, 1,000 feet of her. Meaning that if somehow he happens to stop at a Kroger and he's pushing along and goes around the aisle, and there she is. He needs to leave immediately. Now, there can be happenstance. That technically is a violation. But if it's happenstance, I think they see through it. He has to leave right away.
Yeah, Nick, the thing that wasn't around when I got in this world is texting. I mean, that violates orders.
Any kind of communication. You can't write letters, you can't call or text.
And all that's moving so fast in the generations that we're in that, you can't call, text. And then people say this all the time. What if I was arrested last night? And you serve an order of protection to stay away, all of my clothes, all of my money, all my resources are at this house where I was living. You're now telling me I can't go back. And a lot of times the courts agree to let an officer follow the person there and make sure that it can happen. But there's a lot of work that's going on, and I was going to bring that case up, but the tragedy out in Antioch just the other day, in some ways it worked the way it was supposed to, although people were harmed and injured. He was arrested, he was served notice to stay away, and he had a criminal charge pending. Both of those are happening, but as you know, that can incite the person sometime to go act out in the way in which he did, and it sounds like to me he was pretty lucky to be alive himself.
Just hitting me on what happens when you go into a dangerous situation. Your deputies are not law enforcement like the police department in terms of some of what they do, but you do serve warrants and all this. I was curious, we're talking right now a lot about the whole body camera thing. Would that, I mean, is there any interest in having your deputies be outfitted with that as well, or are we just talking Metro PD?
You know, we will, I've been saying this to our staff, we're probably going to be in the next generation of this conversation.
First the PD, but maybe, and the PD maybe more so in what they deal with, though I think they could be helpful for you as well.
I think there's a piece of this that, let's assume that the police work out the bugs and kinks, and by the way, they're going to be a bunch.
I'm not entirely convinced that body cameras are a good thing unless they're done properly. They are super expensive, and if you don't do them right, you're spending a ton of money on something that's going to create more headaches than good. And I'm telling you, it's the truth. I think I can see how they'd work. I don't know how you feel about it, but boy, you just hit it on the head. They better be properly set up. The bugs. Who's going to have access to the video? How often will the cameras be on? Can I subpoena this and get video? All these questions. Where's it going to be stored? How long does it run? Non-stop? Can they turn it off? There's tons of questions that come into play.
Yeah, this question, I say this a lot, but you know, I used to work for a guy years ago in a prison setting, and he was one of my mentors, really good guy. And he said, I've never seen a camera jump off the wall. And what he really meant was we mounted cameras everywhere to make sure everything. But the truth is, jump off the wall and de-escalate the situation, calm someone down, both staff or inmate. It hardly ever really, you know, gives you exactly what. I think this has been sold as it's going to solve all of our problems. It's not. This was one of the most videoed shootings I've ever seen in Nashville that we just went through. And one of the things that I don't really like, and it kind of was lost in this conversation, you know, I think the mayor and the administration here verbally committed to buying body cameras back in maybe November or something last year. And I really think the better way to do that is to go have a conversation about, do we really want to do it, and put all the costs to the public, let everybody understand it, and then make a decision.
And what the benefits are. There's always kind of a knee-jerk to some degree, and politically we've got to do something. And you're right. Body cameras are cameras of any type. In my opinion, in these crimes of passion and heat and in the moment aren't deterrents. All they're good for is after the fact figuring out what really happened, which is worthwhile, but by then someone's already been shot or killed.
Yeah, I mean, look at the incident over here. I mean, if we take the facts as they are, it was videoed in multiple angles.
Yeah, over at James Casey Homes.
There was a witness. I think the TBI and the police and now the DA have all agreed that if all that's true, I just don't think that, so we run out and buy cameras, not that that doesn't, I think there are ways to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, and you know, like I said, people forget this. You know, I think the former mayor's office wanted to do AMP and said we're going to do AMP and then try to roll it out how they were going to do it. Well, the public reacted in a way. The same thing here. The mayor's office said they were going to do body cameras 6 or 7 months ago, and then backed into why. This is way before the shooting, by the way. So my point is, I think we should have a conversation with the public. One of the things I'm concerned about is, are the arrests going to go up? Does the police officer have the discretion anymore? You pull up on the scene, you know, I'm standing there, you could smell something unusual, you could see something unusual, you see the circumstances, and you think the best way as a police officer to remedy this is to put me on my way, make sure I understand what the risks are, and the discretion of a police officer to work beyond. You can't do that anymore.
If there's video then and you see something, the officer knows you have to. Wow. That's a great point.
It's going to go up. I mean, there's no way around it. How does a police officer or anyone use discretion in a way to warn someone when the camera shows? And I'm not suggesting, you know, bags of cocaine or bags of money sitting around.
Yeah, but sometimes there's very minor offenses that they are stopped for, and I think they use good discretion in not arresting you on the spot. I mean, and they give you a warning, an honest mistake, they see how it is, and they let you go.
So what are we going to be asking now? Why didn't you make the arrest? Why isn't there more people coming to jail? Why don't you? And we're selling it as it's going to reduce.
Yeah, people looking for that magic bullet that's going to solve everything, and the whole idea of cameras, and on its face, it was, oh, of course, let's get body cameras. And just like, I got to say, and I'm not convinced at this at all. Seatbelts on school buses. Not sold on it at all, and I know the families of those in Chattanooga, and I still believe this. I don't believe seatbelts would have saved many of those children in that horrible wreck. That school bus was split in half on that tree. Tragic, tragic story. They were pushing for seatbelts, and at first blush you think seatbelts in school buses. I know it's not law enforcement. You think, oh yeah, that's it. And then you start thinking, wait, well, who's going to unbuckle them if it rolls over and goes into water? And who's going to make sure they buckle? All these questions, you've got to go beyond just the knee-jerk reaction to a specific incident. And beside it, and I know you don't put a price tag on an officer's life or someone else, but both body cameras and seatbelts on school buses is an incredibly huge expense. Incredibly huge. And you need to decide if that money couldn't be spent better other ways to do the same thing to help people.
I heard someone who's on the other side of this issue than law enforcement, who is very anti-law enforcement, very emotional about it, but said one of the best things yet. If you take what is going to probably be $50 million or more.
$50 million, think about it.
You could train every officer or fire every officer that doesn't meet your level of expectation. You could do tremendous things with that kind of money and shape the view in the world of the police department, whoever and however you wanted to do that. I thought that was the better angle to look at it. I think cameras are a lot like the airport. I don't feel any safer getting on an airplane today than I did 25 years ago. I don't. The bad guys are going to know what to do to avoid it. And if you really want to be a bad cop, you're going to find a way to do whatever it is. And a camera to put on everybody and to spend that kind of money, I'm all for cameras on dashes of vehicles. I'm all for cameras that are affixed places. I just don't think this is going to make anyone feel much better.
I'm with you. Let's take a break on that. When we come back, Brian, Jimmy, and others will get to your call. 737-7587 with the Sheriff right after this.
This is a